Leeloo Dallas multipass.
Yeah.
Multipass.
Multipass. She knows it's a multipass. Leeloo Dallas, my wife.
Remember that era when the absurd vision of the future was so loud? It made your retinas want to file a formal protest. Welcome to the fifth element. 1997, a time when zooming taxis through midair was considered the ultimate transit solution, rather than, just digging a few more subway lines. At the heart of the story is Leeloo, a supernatural entity, disguised as a girl with burnt orange hair, a passion for fried chicken, and a vocabulary so limited it rarely escapes the phrase, big bada boom. Her companion is a taxi driver with a face of chronic exhaustion, alongside an MC sporting hair like a literal pipe and a pitch high enough to snap anyone's last nerve. However, few would guess that behind those vibrant frames lay intense romantic dramas and countless events that left our female lead scarred and bruised in the most literal sense. Now let's look back at the 20 scenes audiences hit the pause button on the most. And before we dive in, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel. 20. The Diva's theater performance behind the scenes drama revealed. This is the crowning jewel of the entire film, the alien Diva's opera performance. As she reaches the soaring heights of her aria, boom! The melody takes a sharp turn into high-energy dance beats. Few realize that this iconic track is titled The Diva Dance, a masterpiece crafted by the talented composer Eric Serra. However, the backstage reality was even more dramatic than the movie itself. The diva was played by Maïwenn Lebesco, director Luc Besson's wife at the time. Ironically, during filming, the director began pursuing Milla Jovovich, who was only 19 then. They made their public debut together at the Cannes Film Festival, and officially tied the knot in 1997, marking the end of his marriage to Maïwenn. But as they say, man proposes, God disposes. The romance between Besson and Milla lasted only 2 years before falling apart. 19. Ruby Rhod, getting busy with the flight attendant.
Mr. Rhod! Oh, you can call me Ruby.
You surely remember this steamy moment on the flight to Floston Paradise. Ruby Rhod shares a heated encounter with a stunning flight attendant right in the first-class cabin. My goodness, watching this scene had my eyes popping out of my head in disbelief. While the camera stays focused on their upper bodies, the sound design describes everything quite vividly. As the plane begins its ascent, the flight attendant can't help but let out a high-pitched cry of pure excitement. Due to its suggestive nature, networks like Sci-Fi or ABC often cut or heavily edit the segment for family-friendly viewing. To be honest, when I first saw Ruby's outfit, I thought he was gay, but just look at how intimate he is with those girls. 18. A free lunch with the galaxy's most optimistic chef.
That is bad luck. But grandfather say it never rain every day. This is good news, guarantee.
If there were an award for the most optimistic person in the galaxy, I'd definitely cast my vote for the restaurant owner in this scene. At this point, Korben Dallas is at a total dead end. His wife left him. His lawyer ran off with said wife, and then a termination notice arrives right in the middle of his meal. Yet the owner casually drops a bit of philosophy. My grandfather say it never rain every day. Let's give a round of applause for that kind of spirit. If I didn't have the chance to run the sushi stall in Blade Runner, this Chinese restaurant would definitely be my next choice. Just look at the owner's vibe. He's the real deal. Also, if you look closely at the termination card, you'll spot the Zorg Corporation logo. As it turns out, Korben Dallas was an employee of a taxi company owned by none other than the villain, Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. 17. Ruby Rhod's absolutely manic entrance.
Wither, ladies, wither. It's gonna set the world on fire. Right here from 5 to 7, you know everything there is to know about the demon. His dream.
You surely haven't forgotten Ruby Rhod's iconic debut, that flamboyant leopard print robe surrounded by a massive entourage. Chris Tucker's performance was so extra. It felt like he was about to launch himself into Earth's orbit. Few know that the legend Prince was actually the first choice for this role, but he turned it down because he felt the character was too effeminate. So Chris Tucker got the part, but the funniest thing is that he later shared he actually drew inspiration from Prince himself. It's fascinating how a movie released in the 90s could so accurately predict the explosion of social media and the rise of the influencer culture. And did you notice the chemistry or lack thereof between Bruce Willis and Chris Tucker? The two reportedly did not get along at all because Willis found Tucker too loud. And I have to admit, the guy is loud enough to wake the dead. 16. Leeloo smashes the glass and escapes. This is perhaps one of the most iconic moments in The Fifth Element, the awakening of the supreme being Leeloo. In the blink of an eye, she punches through ultra-thick safety glass with her bare hands. But setting aside that muscle power for a second, let's talk about the real focal point, the thermal bandage outfit. Those white strips wrapped around her body were inspired by medical gauze, serving as a clever peekaboo solution to slip past the sensors. Milla Jovovich later revealed that the outfit was designed so tightly that she could hardly wear anything underneath. This caused quite a bit of stress and anxiety during the action sequences, as the fear of a wardrobe malfunction was always looming. However, what resonated with me most was Milla's expression when she first sees the futuristic world. It was so genuine, it reminded me of my first time setting foot in New York. Startled, overwhelmed, and completely pure. 15. Big Beta Boom.
Stato un tron, sono doppia da dindo scala, nella dindo, gela boom.
You surely remember this scene after escaping and crashing into the taxi? Leeloo lets out a stream of strange alien language, leaving Corben frozen because he has no clue what's going on. And just like that, a classic line was born. I only speak 2 languages, English and bad English. And did you know the language she uses is actually the divine language, Kwamana, consisting of about 400 words meticulously created by director Luc Besson himself. More interestingly, Bruce Willis had never heard Milla speak this language until the camera started rolling, which is why his reaction trying to stifle a laugh is so authentic. But ironically, it was this very divine language that became the catalyst for a real-life love triangle. 14. Leeloo's reconstruction. Do you remember that classic DNA reconstruction process? Leeloo is rebuilt from just a few cells remaining on a gold-armored hand. The scientists in the film use a 3D tissue printing machine to weave every tendon and muscle fiber, rebuilding her entire body from scratch. And did you notice the scene where she is completely naked right after being formed? In reality, the filmmakers used prosthetic breasts for Milla Jovovich. So what is the hidden meaning behind that setup? The image symbolizes a newborn baby, pure and flawless. Using props helped create a beauty so perfect it felt surreal without any human scars or imperfections. However, I found it quite funny to learn that Milla Jovovich was initially rejected at her first audition for wearing too much makeup, only to be cast later when the director ran into her with a bare face by a swimming pool. 13. Leeloo Dallas, multipass.
Leeloo Dallas multipass.
Yeah.
Multipass.
Multipass. She knows it's a multipass. Leeloo Dallas, my wife. We're newlyweds. Just met.
This is one of the most iconic lines in movie history. Standing before the airport security scanner, Leeloo innocently repeats, "Leeloo Dallas, multipass," in a cheerful, childlike voice. Consequently, Korben Dallas has to rack his brain to explain his strange new bride to the security staff. Did you know Bruce Willis was initially hesitant about this project because the script was so bizarre? However, after reading it, he agreed immediately. In the airport scene, Korben's awkwardness upon hearing Leeloo say multipass was partly Bruce's genuine reaction to Milla's quirkiness and charm. To this day at cosplay festivals, anyone dressed as Leeloo simply cannot resist shouting this line. 12. That's a very nice hat.
Take your time.
Oh, God.
You surely still remember the scene where Corben is on the phone when a mugger bursts in with a high-pitched voice. But instead of throwing a punch, Corben just casually delivers a sarcastic compliment. Nice hat. See that? This is hands down one of the best character introductions in cinema history. Through a simple sequence of actions performed with total poise, this scene establishes his hero status without needing any preachy dialogue. He even goes as far as trying to rescue his cat from a stimulant more addictive than catnip, the TV. What a sophisticated man. And did you notice his four-legged friend? That cat is actually cross-eyed. 11. Anybody else want to negotiate?
Anybody else want to negotiate?
This has to be one of the shortest negotiations in movie history. When the Mangalores storm the hotel to steal the Four Stones, taking hostages and creating total chaos, Fogg, the panicked soldier, exclaims, "Mangalores won't fight without the leader." Corben simply walks into the room and finishes the leader Aknot with a single shot to the forehead. And that's that. No need to waste time arguing. What's interesting is that the Mangalores' appearance was achieved entirely through practical makeup effects rather than overusing CGI. Many viewers still praise these practical effects from 1997 as they look far cooler than a lot of modern computer-generated imagery. 10. Leeloo, eating chicken. Chicken, good.
And good.
In this shot, Leeloo is absorbing knowledge at lightning speed from a futuristic computer. But as the camera zooms in, she's munching on fried chicken and exclaims, "Chicken good," with a look of absolute satisfaction. Did you know Milla Jovovich was actually enjoying that chicken right there on set? And her expression was so genuine, I honestly thought she hadn't eaten for 2 days. If you look closely, on Corben's computer screen, letters are scrolling continuously through the alphabet from A to Z. At that moment, Leeloo stops at the letter M, a subtle hint at Milla, meaning 1,000 in Latin, or perhaps a clever pun on Milla Jovovich's own name. This scene places Leeloo in a state of contrast. She may be a weapon of mass destruction, but at the same time she is just a young girl, full of curiosity about the world. 9. Police storming in and arresting the wrong guy.
How much you're helping me? No idea. No idea. I'm going to happily married. Major.
Remember this one, the police force arrives in full gear with the latest anti-riot equipment. However, thanks to a simple house number swap by Cornelius and Leeloo, the SWAT team bursts in and arrests the poor neighbor instead. This is a classic satirical jab at public services, flashy and professional on the outside, but ultimately and ridiculously useless. Additionally, if you look closely, Corben's apartment is a prime example of the smart living spaces we are striving for today. Everything is space optimized from the bed and folding sink to a refrigerator large enough to fit an entire adult. Finally, closing out that chaotic event is the image of Leeloo left behind under an automatic car wash, a moment that is equal parts adorable and pitiful. 8. The elemental connection scene.
There are some things, very nice things worth saving, some beautiful things. Beautiful things.
Do you remember the movie's climactic finale? Our 4 heroes are pouring every ounce of their strength into connecting the ancient elements. At the center of it all is Leeloo, the 5th element. But ironically, she has fallen into a state of exhaustion and completely lost faith in humanity. In that life-or-death moment, Korben Dallas makes a decisive move. He confesses his sincere love and gives her a passionate kiss. It is love that becomes the final key to activating the ultimate weapon, stopping the catastrophe and saving all life in the universe. But no matter how touching it is, I still can't help but laugh at Ruby Rhod's completely out-of-place contribution. The moment he looks at the matchstick nostrils flaring with a bewildered face like, wait, is that it? Is truly hilarious? 7. Thanks, Ray. In this scene, Korben Dallas is backed into a corner during the theater battle. When he runs out of ammo, a waiter named Ray tosses him a pool ball. Corben uses it to take down the last Mangalore soldier, and casually says, "Thanks, Ray?" If you pay close attention, Ruby Rhod is right by Corben's side throughout this fight, screaming non-stop. The contrast between a battle-hardened warrior and a panicked superstar adds a perfect layer of comedy to that "thanks, Ray" line. In a movie where weapons can destroy entire planets, sometimes a pool ball and the help of an ordinary waiter are what saved the galaxy. 6. Testing the new gun.
Famous net launcher. The always efficient flamethrower.
The introduction of the ZF-1 rifle by the villain Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg is the definition of calculated madness. Once the first shot hits the mark, every subsequent bullet automatically finds its way to that exact spot. But don't let the effects fool you. The ZF-1 Gary Oldman held was a real mechanical prop. It was so heavy that Oldman struggled to keep his hands from shaking while trying to press the buttons smoothly in front of the Mangalores. Every time the barrel rotated or opened up, he had to rely on the crew behind the scenes. An ironic truth is that Gary Oldman once shared he didn't like the role of Zorg at all. He only accepted the part to return a favor to director Luc Besson for helping him fund another film. However, that very dislike is likely what created such a perfectly irritable villain, probably because he was starring in a movie he wasn't particularly thrilled about. 5. Leeloo's vibrant orange hair.
It's just like, oh, genius. I love it. Which, of course, you know.
Who could forget Leeloo's mesmerizing bright orange hair? It wasn't just a hairstyle, it was the most powerful visual icon of the entire film. However, few know that in the initial scenes, Leeloo's hair was entirely natural, crafted by a renowned stylist in New York. Unfortunately, the constant bleaching and dyeing required to maintain that specific tone severely damaged Milla Jovovich's hair. As a result, for the vast majority of the subsequent scenes, she was forced to wear a wig. Milla later shared that the uncontrollable hair loss was quite a shock, but she accepted it as a sacrifice for a career-defining role. Even today, over 25 years later, she often recalls it with a proud smile. Leeloo's orange still screams the name Leeloo to this day. The color remains so famous that many still attempt to recreate the exact fluorescent orange with blonde roots look, despite knowing how incredibly harsh it is on the hair. 4. The Mondashawans retrieve the fifth element from humans.
Father, this is the most unbelievable thing I have ever seen, don't you think?
This opening sequence is the master key that unlocks the entire mythological world of the fifth element. Set in ancient Egypt in 1914, this is the moment we first witness the Mondashawans, the great guardians of the universe. But hidden within is a bit of bitter irony in the script. Remember when the Mondashawans decided to reclaim the stones and the Supreme Being because this world is no longer safe? It was a chilling prophecy as World War I officially broke out immediately after. Additionally, that majestic Egyptian temple was actually a set built at Pinewood Studios in the UK. Did you notice the symbols on the walls? They actually contain instructions on how to operate the four elements, something we only see the true effect of at the very end of the movie. 3. Humanity faces absolute evil. You likely remember the scene where humanity confronts the dark force while the president of Earth is still hesitating. The general rushes to persuade him, shoot first, ask questions later. However, instead of being destroyed, the entity absorbs the energy to double in size. This scene brilliantly portrays the central theme of the film, the folly of mankind, when faced with the incomprehensible. Humans tend to choose violence as the first resort only to reap catastrophic and irreversible consequences. I quite like how the script builds the president's character someone with authority who remains level-headed. Upon witnessing the sphere's transformation, he immediately takes Father Cornelius's warning seriously. Unfortunately, General Statert fails to realize this. His arrogance and worship of weaponry cost him his life, while leading to the senseless sacrifice of all his military personnel. 2. Corben's stolen kiss. The scene begins with Korben Dallas's patient attempt to wake Leeloo from her long slumber. In a moment of weakness, Corben tries to steal a kiss while she's still asleep, only to be met with a cold shower. Leeloo wakes up. It's amusing to see Corben, a seasoned former Special Forces operative who has survived countless battles, become ridiculously flustered and awkward in front of a girl who looks fragile but possesses extreme self-defense instincts. And do you remember the moment her gaze softens when she realizes this is her savior? To spark her memory, Corben has to struggle to remind her that he's the unlucky taxi driver with the phrase, "Big Beta Boom." 1. The phone call from Mr. Shadow.
Zorg's office?
I told you I do not want to be disturbed.
Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. Gary Oldman receives a fateful call from Mr. Shadow, the entity representing absolute evil looming toward Earth. Despite usually being a ruthless tycoon, Zorg suddenly shows sheer terror trembling as he faces his master's ghostly voice. When questioned about the whereabouts of the stones, he awkwardly justifies that costs have tripled due to unforeseen circumstances. In that tense moment, a strange black liquid begins to streak down Zorg's face. This is a manifestation of the horrific psychic influence and the deathly threat from the ultimate entity surrounding his mind. After nearly 3 decades, the fifth element remains a colorful and eccentric cinematic wonder. The combination of Luc Besson's ahead-of-its-time vision, Jean-Paul Gaultier's avant-garde fashion sense, and a vibrant cast has created frames that no matter how many times you rewind, still offer new details to marvel at. How about you? Which moment made you hit the pause button the most while rewatching this journey to save the universe? Share your favorite moment in the comments below.